Hello friends, welcome to my Q3 review. I'm doing the video in a bit of a different format, at least I'm trying to. I'm going for the more vloggy style because I want it to be less formal, less sit down and talk you through every single section, and more so like we're hanging out and doing the quarterly review together, which I hope we are doing because it is time for you to do your quarterly review as well as mine. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to start by setting up the vibe, of course. You know, that's like the most important thing that I start things off with. So let's make some coffee. Okay, so why is setting a vibe so important? I think when we think about reviews, quarterly reviews just in general, they're not exactly super exciting. It's not something that we tend to look forward to. They might have some anxiety associated with it. Even if they are personal quarterly reviews, I still think there is that association. So what I try to do is set up a really positive vibe so I actually enjoy doing these things time and time again, and I actually look forward to future ones as well. So what I usually do is make myself a really good cup of coffee, as you can see I'm doing here, and I also get cozy and set myself up with a really feel-good playlist. Okay, as you can see, I'm sitting by Ian's desk. I have been taking a liking to his side of the office because he has this really comfy chair, and I think it's really nice. So that's where we are for this quarterly review. That's where I'm going to do the majority, if not all of my quarterly review this time around. And before I even begin and get into the thick of things and start sharing all of those details with you, I haven't done the review yet. I'm literally about to do it right now. I just wanted to share some quick tips. Let me put this coffee down. Okay, first off, what are quarterly reviews? If this is your first video ever and you have never heard of quarterly reviews, you're probably like, what the heck is going on, in the intro at least. So quarterly reviews is something that I came up with, or personal quarterly reviews is something that I came up with based off of work quarterly reviews. So I think that's where they originate from. I think that's where the phrase originates from. And it's basically when you set certain goals for yourself in your work space, your yearly goals, say, and every quarter you go back to those goals and you measure your success. You hold yourself accountable for the things that you've done well, things that you haven't done well, lessons learned, and then what you have to do moving forward to reach those goals in the following quarter. And I take that exact same concept and shift it over to personal goals, because I feel like we do not take our personal goals as seriously as we do our work goals, and we have really no one holding us accountable for those goals except ourselves. So I've set up this system for myself so that I can hold myself accountable and make sure that I am sticking to the goals that I have for myself, because those are the most important goals in our lives. It's the things that prioritize our joy, our interests, and what we want out of this life. So that's essentially what quarterly reviews are. Okay, and so a couple of tips before I actually jump into things. One, of course, setting the vibe, and we just talked about setting a vibe and why that's important. So the vibe is set. I'm going to put a playlist on after I talk to you. The second thing, why wins are important. We need to make sure that we are acknowledging and celebrating our wins, because they are important no matter how small they are. We need to celebrate those things and reward ourselves for those things, so that we feel encouraged to continue going on, to continue creating those wins, to continue progressing with our goals. The third thing, why are setbacks important? Setbacks are normal, they're completely fine, and it is actually expected for you to have setbacks because we are not perfect humans. Things change. I talk about this a little bit in my birthday video recently, actually. I think it either came out yesterday or it's coming out tomorrow, so stay tuned. But setbacks are really important, and they create lessons for us, lessons learned. And we take those lessons and we improve using those lessons. So those are going to be really, really important to hold on to for when you are creating a successful Q4, which is our last quarter of this year. And then the last thing I just want to mention is to celebrate your end results no matter what, because you put in the effort. Even if it's just a tiny bit of effort, you put in the effort to do this quarterly review, you put in the effort to do whatever it is that you did in the past quarter, in the past few months, and so that is worth celebrating. So just remember that. And with that, I am going to start my quarterly review. I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, so I just finished my quarterly review. It didn't take me too long, actually. I think I'm getting better and better at this as time goes on, so it doesn't take me too long. I did put on the first Demi Lovato album while I was doing my quarterly review, in case you were interested, because I do recall getting some comments about my playlist last time I did this, but I'm going to share with you what I wrote down for my Q3 review that I have here in my journal. And then I will do a mini Notion tour. So there is some cleanup. I know for sure I have to do some cleanup in there. So it should be interesting. But let's start with the actual review that I wrote down in my journal. And I'm going to go through the prompts so you can hold on to those prompts as well and use them for your quarterly review. But the first prompt is my word for Q3. And what I wrote is technically 2 words, but the main word is home, and specifically I wrote coming home. I feel like from my Q2 review, I wrote down, my word was lost. And so I feel like I was coming back to a place that is comfortable, safe, and there's like a deeper understanding almost. And we'll get more into that as we dive into the other prompts, but I felt like coming home was the right phrase for Q3, specifically home, if we want to use one word and be very diligent about that. But the next prompt is my wins for Q3. So I have quite a few. The first is that I got fully monetized on YouTube. The biggest accomplishment that I think I've had in a really, really long time, and it's definitely going to be the biggest accomplishment of mine for the entire year. I just know it. The next thing is that I spent a lot of time with friends and family, like a lot of time. I haven't socialized this much in a really, really long time, which I'm going to consider as a win because it was really great quality time for the most part. The next thing is redesigning the podcast. So we came back with our podcast. If you did not know, I do a podcast with Ian, my husband, and it's called Live or Alone Podcast. It's a horror podcast. It's like a talk show where we talk about all sorts of horror media, and I did a bit of a redesign. I made it look a lot more vintage, and I think it fit the aesthetic of what our podcast is about a little bit more. So I'm really proud that I, set some time to do that, and I'm really happy with the results. And I also redesigned or restructured the podcast itself to make it a little bit more streamlined and easier on my end to manage, because before it was just kind of all over the place and unrealistic for all of the things that I do. And to be honest, it's still a lot, but it's a lot more manageable than it was before. So definitely a win for me. Another win, which is really random, I feel like it's a win, is that I got a bunch of tattoos. I did not anticipate getting the amount of tattoos that I got. So I got 3 tattoos this year. I usually do 1 tattoo a year, but I haven't had a tattoo in the past 3 years. So I guess I made up for all of the years that I did not get a tattoo per year, and I got them all this year. They're all in different parts of my arm, but I have maybe if I have photographs, I'll put them on the screen, but I have a pumpkin tattoo that I shared on Instagram. I got some vampire teeth on this hand, and then I got another tooth on this part of my arm over here. That one was the most recent one. I swear the last 2 that I got were unexpected, and I only got them because they were like flash sales. And so that's how that ended up happening. But I'm really happy that I got them because I do eventually want to get a sleeve. And, this obviously helps me achieve that goal. And I do want to get like more smaller, daintier, fine line tattoos. And the 2 teeth tattoos are those, I think. Okay. And the last one that I have is that I read, of course, that has been a big thing this year for me, surprisingly. And I played some games. So you may remember in my past monthly reviews or quarterly reviews that I have been neglecting my gaming. I haven't picked up a game in months and stuff like that. And I think it was either this month or last month, I did pick up Ian's Steam Deck and I played some cool games. I cannot remember the names of them right now, but I did play Dead by Daylight. I did play some multiplayer games with Ian, and I also played a couple of cozy games that I found through TikTok, and that was fun as well. I do want to do more of that, so I am excited that I finally picked it up and I'm getting excited about it again. Okay, so those are my wins. Big wins, some bigger than others, but all worth celebrating. As a reminder to you, all wins are worth celebrating. And then moving on to setbacks, which I think are just as important, if not more important. So the setbacks that I have is 1, I abandoned all of my house projects. Pretty much every single one of them. And you'll see this in my Notion tour when I go into my house projects little board. I've abandoned all of them. And there's a reason for that. And I'll talk about that reason in my lessons learned section, which is coming up really soon. But that is a setback because they were part of my 2024 goals. The next thing is that I didn't really challenge myself when it came to workouts. And I feel like this was something that you have heard me say in my monthly reviews. It has just been one of those things on the list that I've kept pushing back more and more. I feel like I've been really complacent when it comes to my body movement, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm not fully disappointed in myself. It's just that I did want to step out of that comfort zone and do something a little bit more challenging, and I feel like I didn't do that enough in the past quarter. So it's something that I do want to work on, and again, we'll talk about it in the future goals type of stuff, but I didn't do so hot this time around. Okay, another setback is that I did not work on any art. And I should have anticipated this. I had so many goals late last year for art related things, creating large pieces, stuff like that. And I know now that it was really ambitious, but I also know better, and I should have known better, that during the summertime, I'm not quite as inspired as I am during the cooler seasons. I'm very, very inspired by fall and winter, and that's when my artsy side comes out full force. So to have those ambitious goals, it's got to be dedicated to those times of the year, and it just wasn't going to happen in the warmer seasons, which, we just had. So of course I didn't work on any art related things. Not super disappointed. It's just that I feel like that time period is time lost when it comes to working on my art. And I'm actually considering a different tactic, a different method going forward when it comes to art. I'll probably get into that for the new year, but right now I'm not stressing about it. Okay. And then the last setback that I have is that I had a pretty tricky time with my work-life balance. I'm not talking about content creation. That I feel like I've been really, really good with, but I'm talking about like my 9 to 5. My 9 to 5 has increasingly gotten more and more intense for me, not to a point where I can't take it, but it has gotten more intense. And I start to notice that if I'm getting overwhelmed, if I'm getting burnt out with my work-life balance, I start dreaming about my 9 to 5. And that's when I know something's really wrong. I need to stop that because I spend enough time working on my 9 to 5, literally 9 to 5, that I don't need to be thinking about it when I'm freaking sleeping, So that is a bad sign, and I did have some nights like that. So definitely a setback. It might be the setback that I'm most disappointed in here. That segues into the next prompt, which is lessons learned. So what I do is I take those setbacks, I look at those setbacks, and I think about what I have learned from those setbacks and what can I use constructively moving forward based off of the setbacks and experiences that I've had there. So my lessons learned is 1, priorities will change, and that's okay. Once again, I will talk about this more in my birthday video. I do a birthday video where I talk about 5 slow living lessons that I've learned, and this is very prominent in that video. So whether you've seen it already or you're going to see it tomorrow, you'll hear me talk about it a lot more. So I won't be redundant, but priorities will change, and that's okay. The second lesson learned is that I need to stop taking on more when I've got enough. As is. This is something that I will probably be telling myself for the rest of my life because I always forget this. I don't know how I forget this, but it's just one of those things that I tend to do. I tend to take on more. I tend to say yes. I tend to want to people please. I tend to want to, show initiative and show that I can get something done, even though in reality, I probably shouldn't, for the sake of my, mental capacity, for my work-life balance, things like that. And sometimes it's my fault that I end up getting burnt out because I keep taking initiative, and it's great to take initiative, but at the same time that there's got to be a boundary set there. So lesson learned 500 times in my life so far, and there'll be 500 more, I'm sure. Moving on to the next prompt, that is moving forward wants. So basically, what do I want in my Q4? And I will talk more about my Q4 goals in particular, but I really want to have a calm and restful Q4 that focuses on just me. I mean, not just me, like only me, just me and my personal life, and that includes my family and Ian and stuff like that, but just a far more calm and restful quarter in comparison to all of the quarters that I've had. And I think that's a fair thing to want because, we're coming down to the end of the year, and while we want to race and get a lot of things done that we haven't gotten done, feel like I've made pretty darn good progress with my 2024 goals. So I think it's fair for me to kind of ease into the last one, at least based off of all of this holding myself accountable type stuff that I have been doing. So yeah, that is the 5th prompt, and the final prompt is just a rating that I have for Q3, and my rating is 7.5. I think that's a good rating. It feels good to me. That number just came into my head when I was doing the rating. And in comparison to Q2, I gave myself a 5.5. So we have made significant positive progress in comparison to Q2. Now I'll just say my Q1 was 9.5. So, you know, I haven't gotten there just yet once more, but we'll see what happens in Q4. But I still feel really, really good about that. And with that being said, we have reached the end of my journaling part. I'm going to switch you over to Notion so you can see a little tour there. Okay, friends, welcome back to my Notion. As you can see, it looks very autumnal. From the last video, it looked a lot more summery. So here is the autumnal Notion. We've got a little like fall painting up here. We've got the maple leaf. And then if I scroll down a bit, you can see I replaced all of my pictures with more autumnal pictures. I love doing this every season. So here we are. Now let's do a little bit of cleanup, especially over here, because now that we're finished with Q3, we need to turn this into our Q4 master to-do list. And I will update this afterwards with more specific stuff. I haven't really fine-tuned what I want to put here, especially because it's going to be a much more reflective Q4 for me personally. But I just want to acknowledge that pretty much everything here got completed. I did the social hangout, which I think no, I won't keep it. I've completed it and I've continued to consistently do that. Turning caption, storytelling, brainstorm for IG, I've done that. We researched the hot tub and pool. Content research dump for TikTok. Sorry, I can't speak for some reason. That's this section over here, by the way, the content dump. Coordinate what new blog series. Yes, I think I have 2 actually coming up. I have a food related one, and then I have like a gratitude diaries series coming up on the blog as well. Style research for YouTube. Hopefully you have noticed that I've done some slight tweaking with my YouTube videos to improve them. Look into podcast promo, email marketing. I did look into this, but I will not be pursuing it this year. Casual content video on TikTok. I had so many ideas, as you can clearly see, but I did not actually execute them. And I may do it during the winter season or this Q4, but who knows? But I'm just gonna, you know what? Actually, let's keep it. Let's keep it there as part of my Q4. And I'll just remove the background so that it's there. Accomplished 5/3/30. So I accomplished 5/3/15. And I will say that that is something. I think that's a major success for me. I personally like to do 15 minutes of cardio and then 15 minutes of strength training. So I'm going to keep it at 15 minutes anyway, because realistically speaking, I'm only going to ever do 15 minutes anyway. And let's amp this up to 6 instead of 5 so that the incline is a little bit more. And I'll keep that there because I still do want to challenge myself when it comes to body movement. If you don't know what this is essentially like a workout routine. You do an incline of 6, speed of 3 miles an hour, and then for 15 minutes. Okay, the shower conversion, it's in red because I'm not doing that anymore. The kitchen cabinets, I'm not doing anymore. And the fence, not doing anymore. As we just spoke about, I really deprioritized my house projects. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to the house projects, which, by the way, I mentioned this already, but this is going to be a lot fuller. You'll see that in my next monthly review, which is obviously going to happen at the end of this month. But moving on here, this is what my house projects page looks like. No progress, no changes from the last time you saw this. And I think I'm going to wait to the beginning of the year and sit down with Ian actually and work through this, because when I previously made this board, I made it myself and I never really consulted with Ian, which I should have. And so that is how a lot of changes prompted, because I had conversations with Ian and we talked about priorities, budget, blah, blah, blah. So this is going to be revisited in the new year. You probably won't see it in the future monthly review videos. Moving on to the wish list. This is something I wanted to show you. It's empty. I am getting rid of this because it actually wasn't intuitive. It wasn't something that I really looked into realistically on a practical level. I just have a lot of Google Chrome tabs on my phone and I just use that. So I didn't need to keep this. So I'm going to move it to this folder that I have called archives. I have a lot of boards in there, by the way. I keep them instead of deleting them so that I can copy them in the future if I ever need to use it as a template. So I'm moving that in there. Game tracker. Honestly, I have not been keeping up with this at all, but I should. And when I get some free time, I'm probably going to go ahead and update this because it's a good space to keep track of, particularly Steam games, because that can really multiply before your eyes. The plant database, I also did not check at all. I really didn't. And maybe I'll do this at the end of the year, or maybe I'll do this at the end of the gardening season, which is not intuitive at all, which means that this wasn't helpful at all. It's kind of not necessary for me to do all of this detailed data work if I can keep track of it on my own. It's not a massive garden, you know what I mean? So maybe I'll move this to the archive actually. And if I do end up needing to use it for the next gardening season, I can always go back to it. Okay, Slow Morning Diaries. I did a lot of work in here, but I'm not going to show it to you because it's like all data. Like, this is the most data-driven area in my entire Notion. It's got numbers, all of that boring stuff. But this is where I go in when I'm doing my quarterly review, and I just make sure that I'm, keeping on track of each individual platform that I'm on. And I'm on a lot of platforms, so this takes a huge chunk of time, and I don't want to bore you with that. This is my podcast board, which I don't really go into when it comes to my quarterly reviews. This is something that I do for fun, and it's like a passion project. And while I do have goals for it, it's not something that I check in my quarterly reviews. I more so check this on a monthly basis with Ian and just check the vibes, if that makes more sense. And then I have a birthday trip coming up. I won't click into that because that hasn't happened yet, and I just want to, I'll show it to you afterwards. I'll show it to you in a future video. But that is what my Notion board is looking like. I'm so happy to see that this is empty. It feels good for some reason, but it's going to get filled up pretty quickly, but not too much, I'm quite sure. But yeah, that is the Notion tour. Hope you like that. Okay, so the final part of this video is just me talking about Q4 and what I'm looking forward to. And I've already hinted at it a few times, but I am hoping for my Q4 to be very calm, very restful, especially in comparison to the first 3 quarters that we've had this year, because it is the end of the year, and I would really like to relax more than any other time of the year. I want to enjoy the season. I want to enjoy fall and winter as best as I can. And in order for me to do that, I need to be doing less work and more living, if that makes sense. Generally speaking, I'm just going to be working on whatever I feel like is most important for me to wrap up before the end of the year, and that is through me looking at my 2024 goals. So I'm looking at them right now, and I have challenging myself regarding workouts, which we talked about several times. You see the plan that I'm going with. I am going to challenge myself inch by inch, but not insanely so, because I do still want to prioritize rest above all. Putting money into my savings each month, which I have been doing. So I didn't mention that because I've just been doing that pretty consistently. Clearing up my skin, which, I can't really control that, but, I can keep track of it. And as you can see, I'm dealing with a lot of breakouts, and I don't know what's going on there. I'll keep you updated on that, but I can only do the best that I can do there. I do have a doctor's appointment coming up, so I'm working on it. The next thing is the most important thing for Q4, I think, is to dedicate time to hobbies, which is art, reading, and games. And as I've talked already about, I'm very inspired during this time of the year, so I think I will be really, really focusing on this one in particular. The next goal I have is to focus on YouTube. I've been doing that all year round, and I don't anticipate slowing down. It's just something I'm so passionate and excited about always, so that's just gonna keep on happening. And then the last thing that I have here is going to actually end right at the cusp of Q3 and Q4, which is like right now. It is to garden from seed to harvest. So I have been harvesting. I've been harvesting a lot of peppers and some tomatoes from my garden for the past, few months. But we're now coming down to the part where I have to uproot everything, harvest what's left, uproot everything, compost what I can compost, and then get everything reset for the next gardening season, which is obviously going to happen next year. So yeah, the biggest thing there is to dedicate time to hobbies, and all of the usual stuff are, moving pieces that have just been moving. So I feel really excited about Q4. So I'm just gonna end this video off by saying that I hope you had a really great Q3. Let me know in the comments how you did, what wins you have, let's celebrate together, or what lessons that you've learned based off of your setbacks. If you're comfy sharing those in the comments, please do. But I do want to congratulate you for watching this video, taking initiative, and really holding yourself accountable and being serious about your personal joys and your personal goals. Those goals, I promise you, are the most important goals that you will ever hold on to. More than work, more than, goals that other people have thrown onto you. This is all about you. And while it may seem very analytical and productive and tactical in some cases and in most cases for this video, it is still down to the very base of it. It's just about prioritizing you and your interests and your goals and your passions. I hope you have an amazing Q4. Let me know if you have any goals for Q4, if you're kind of resonating with me and wanting to have a more reflective, cozy Q4, because I think that's a really great way to go. Or if you're on the other end and you're trying to get all of your things done. I'm excited about these next few months, and I will talk to you in next week's video.